Okay, so question. Sorry, Sweet.
Well, Deputy Speaker, question 1, please.
Minister.
My department has arranged a provision for young people with special educational needs delivered through further education colleges, universities and across our vocational training provision. However, there are significant gaps in provision, and these have been worsened by the loss of European Social Fund. This is not acceptable. Everyone should be able to access opportunities and fulfil their potential. I have therefore asked officials to review the current provision and provide me with recommendations to improve support for young people with special educational needs. I have also asked my officials to examine legislative protections and to bring back advice as soon as possible. It is my hope that both practical support and legislative protections can be strengthened in this mandate. This will require collaboration across the departments.
Sorry, Sweet, for a supplementary.
I thank the Minister for his response. I'm really encouraged by that, and I also am sure that he's aware of the fantastic campaign that Alma White and her son Caleb have been undertaken over the last number of months on raising awareness really of that post-19 provision for SEN young adults. You've already said to me in your initial response there that you're going to consider collaborative working. I'm assuming that would be along the lines of working for the Education Minister, for example?
Minister.
Yes, and I had the pleasure of meeting Alma White last week. Met her up in my office here. And yes, it will be a question of collaborating with other departments. I mean, obviously, in terms of that post-19 cohort of people, then there is a significant responsibility for the Department of Economy. But that will require us to have a joint approach with education. We're already working with the Disability Work Strategy that's led by communities. The Department of Education end-to-end, special needs end-to-end review is co-chaired by Education and the Department of Health. So I am very happy, and I did undertake when I spoke to Alma last week to talk to the other ministers involved to make sure that in the first instance that if there are things we can do in the here and now to improve access to training and proper fulfilling experiences for people with special educational needs, that we do that, but also in terms of legislation, which is generally a longer term. But if that, I've asked officials to come back to me, and I hope if that is required, that can be done within this mandate.
Not Owen. Peter McReynolds for supplementary.
I didn't indicate.
Minister for the Economy. He'll also be aware of 4G, who conduct a similar service out in the Dundonald area for a number of boys and girls who fall into this category. Minister, there's a dearth of provision once special educational needs pupils hit 18. Are these young people going to be a priority for your department? And what action will you take to demonstrate that they are a priority and they're not going to be left by the wayside once they leave school?
Minister.
Well, I agree with you that there's a dearth of provision, and that hasn't happened recently. That has been going on for many years. It's an inequality, and if there's anything that we can do in terms of our job in this institution, and certainly in our jobs, those of us who hold executive minister positions, then it is to try and tackle inequalities and injustices wherever they are. And so I did give a commitment that that's what I would try to do. I have worked on this issue in the past in terms of my constituency representative role. I understand the frustration that people have where that comes to a cliff edge at the age of 19 and little or no provision beyond that. So I have undertaken to do what we can do in the department to work with the other ministers where there is crossover, and there are a number of crossovers with health, education, communities, to work with those ministers, and if legislation is required to try and get that through in this mandate.
Paul Owen Tennyson. Minister.
I plan to consult on proposals to bring forward an employment rights bill to protect and enhance workers' rights. As well as supporting the commitments of New Decade, New Approach, this new legislation will help to deliver on the good jobs objective in my own economic plan. Payment of the real living wage is a key element of a good job. While the minimum wage setting powers have not been devolved at this stage, I recently announced my department's support for a full-time living wage franchise here to encourage the uptake of the real living wage. My department will provide £125,000 per year to advise NI to carry out this important work.
Owen Tennyson for supplementary.
Thank the Minister for that answer. Minister, will that legislation include provision to expand basic rights on day one of employment, such as, for example, the right to parental leave?
Minister. Yes, as I say, I hope next week to be able to announce a consultation to the full range of issues that will be in the Good Jobs Bill. My intention is to come to the Chamber next week to do that. And that will include a range of matters. That's a consultation document to go out. Of course, people can respond, and if they think there are other areas that should be covered in it or aren't, feel free to make that contribution to it, or indeed to offer any observations or insights on some of the issues that are raised. So it's a fairly comprehensive piece of legislation that will come from that, so it's a significant consultation document. I look forward to be able to launch that next week and have the feedback to that over the course of the summer.
Durkin for supplementary.
Yes, Cian Corlea. Would the Minister agree that exploitative zero-hour contracts should be banned as part of this employment bill? And I do know he is going out for consultation, and I look forward to that. But could he indicate at this stage if he thinks the legislation should include such a ban?
Minister.
Well, I've already said on a number of occasions that it will and it should include such a ban. I think exploitative situations for all workers should be tackled wherever we can. This, as I said in response to a previous question, if there's one thing we can do here, it's about tackling inequalities and injustices, and we should set our minds to that. So it is my intention to do that. I'll go out to consultation, obviously, and see what the return is, but I'd be very surprised if there isn't a strong measure of support for that.
Call Jerry Kelly. Minister.
Employee ownership has the potential to increase productivity and create fairer workplaces. However, currently the North has only a limited number of employee ownership businesses, and I would like to see that increase. I have directed my department to undertake research on employee ownership, and this will include an examination of the advantages or disadvantages of employee ownership as a business model, a consideration of case studies of businesses that have become employee-owned businesses, and a look at the potential for the growth of employee-owned businesses. This research will be published in the latter part of the summer this year. Investa and I are also already working with the business sector, including the social economy sector, to promote employee ownership for businesses with succession planning.
Jerry Kelly for supplementary.
Going brief lesson there, I sucked Fragra Guji Shaw, thank you for his answer up till now, and he was talking about, and could he expand perhaps a little on the benefits of employee-owned businesses to employees and employers?
Well, this is, if you like, an approach to business succession which isn't very well illuminated here. It's not very well known. That is growing. I attended a conference a week or two ago, which was the third in a series of conferences over 3 days in Newry and Cookstown, I think, and then in Belfast, which is very significant interest in this model. So the benefits subject to qualifying conditions. There can be a significant tax incentive to encourage business to adopt employee ownership model with an exemption from capital gains tax on the sales of shares, on the sale of shares to employee ownership trust. Owners have a viable succession plan option, one which keeps the business embedded in the community. For many owners, safeguarding the future of the business and its employees is an important objective, and selling to your workforce does not mean severing ties with the business. For employers, having employees engaged directly with the business not only improves general working conditions, but analysis by WPI Economics estimates that employee-owned businesses are around 8 to 12% more productive and 25% more likely to see increased profits than those that are not employee-owned.
I call Liz Kimmins.
Question 4, please. Sorry.
Minister.
It is frustrating that the future of RHI is still undecided. It is a problem I inherited and a problem that should have been dealt with long ago. A permanent solution, as raised at last year's Court of Appeal judgment, is necessary for all legitimate participants on the scheme and for the taxpayer. Delay risks further litigation, and the urgent need to close the scheme is underlined by Ofgem withdrawing their administrative services by April 2026 at the latest. I first circulated an executive paper on the 4th of April this year. It seeks to uplift tariffs and confirm the Executive's intention to close the scheme. This confirmation is needed if my officials are to develop a detailed proposal for closure and to negotiate with Treasury on using the funding available for another scheme. It is frustrating that the Executive has not been allowed to make a decision on the future of RHI.
Call Liz Kimmins for supplementary.
I thank the Minister for his answer. Minister, can you answer me then, is the delay in allowing the Executive to make a decision, therefore delaying the tariff uplift for RHI?
Yes, the delay in taking a decision delays everything. It also acts to frustrate the view of the Court of Appeal, was that this thing should move on at pace, that people should get certainty in relation to tariffs, and the Executive should give some certainty in relation to the future of the scheme. So not to be able to have this discussed and debated in Executive is extremely frustrating. I've tried on a number of occasions now, and I intend to bring this matter back to the next available Executive, and I hope that is sooner rather than later.
Steve Aiken for supplementary.
Minister, for his answers so far. Minister, obviously you've been doing a lot more detailed work on closure of the RHI scheme. Could you indicate to this Assembly what the quantum of funds is likely to be that is going to be required to give the sufficient funds for closure?
Minister.
In order to get to the part where you're calculating that and entering into a discussion as to what might be an acceptable outcome in terms of tariffs, in terms of the funding that might be available to us from Treasury, we have to get to the first base, if you like, which is an Executive have to take a decision and signal an intent. And that's what I've been bringing to the Executive now for a number of weeks, and unable to get a decision, able to even get a discussion in relation to that. So we need that decision to be taken. Then on the back of that, we will go off and do the calculations, and I will bring a further paper to the Executive to outline the costs, the possibilities of funding to support that, and allow the Executive then to take a fuller decision in relation to closure.
Call Alan Robinson.
Deputy Speaker.
Tourism NI has provided significant financial support to the Stendhal Festival in recent years, amounting to £58,000 for the last 5 years during which the festival has taken place. Data in relation to the performance of events supported under National Tourism Event Sponsorship Scheme is provided by event organisers as part of their post-event evaluation. Data on the performance of the event since its inception is not available, as funding has not been provided for every year of the event since its inception. However, I have no doubt that music events like the Stendhal Festival encourage visitors to explore more of the North by providing authentic and positive cultural experiences within dramatic landscapes.
Alan Robinson for supplementary.
Yeah, thanks, Principal Deputy Speaker. Thank the Minister for his answer. Will your department, along with Tourism NI, continue to identify ways to be able to support locally grown events such as Stendhal?
As I say, the big challenge with supporting any events, and you'd like to be in the position to support them all, is the finances available. So that means you get down to decision making, and you need evidence in place to support that. You need amount of money available to be able to spread. And that it means that events such as that festival and other events end up competing with each other for limited funds, and that can mean that some gain in that scenario and some lose out. But I have no doubt that these festivals are very good events. They do attract visitors. I'm aware of people from my own locality who go to that particular musical event, and that they do bring business and tourism into the area and therefore support the local economy in that part of the North West. So I would like to be in a position, and I'm sure Tourism NI would like to be in a position to support all of these. The question, of course, is the amount of funds they have available to them and how they try and disperse that across the many competing demands.
Colcar Hunter.
Speaker, Minister, we have some of the lowest funding for the arts across these islands. Does the Minister share my concern that this could be detrimental for music acts like at Stendhal Festival and put young people off going into this career choice? And also, will he consider attending the Stendhal Festival in the upcoming weeks?
Minister, answer whichever question you want there. You got two.
I'm a bit like yourself, Laskin Cora, getting too old for these musical events. There's too many people at them. But I do agree, it is a very unfortunate thing that when budgets become very, very tightly squeezed, often the first thing to suffer is the arts. And it's not just that the arts are necessary for the enrichment of all our lives. They obviously are an economic generator in terms of events in a lot of areas. So it is a challenge. It's obviously not my area in terms of funding. But if we were, hopefully the Executive can succeed with the new government coming in to try and secure sufficient funding. I would hope to see the arts getting an uplift the same as all other vital public services.
Delargy for supplementary.
Laskin Collier, Minister, thank you for your answer so far. Can you provide me with some more detail as to what your department does to promote music and arts events across the board?
Minister.
Well, Tourism NI is responsible for the administration of tourism events funding within the department. Since 2019, Tourism NI has provided over £1.6 million of financial support to events and festivals that promote the arts, such as theatre, art and music. Tourism NI has also supported the event and festival organisers with skills development and capacity building through one-to-one mentoring and masterclasses on topics such as delivering environmentally sustainable events and developing commercial opportunities.
I call David Honeyford for a supplementary.
Thank you, Principal Deputy Speaker. I definitely don't think you're too old to be going to a live event there. That was it's terrible. But given how important live events are to our tourism industry, will the new tourism action plan that's currently been developed, will that outline how the department will strategically promote our own homegrown events?
Yes, well, not only we're developing the action plan, we're putting together a group which is a mixture of people from across the industry to try and advise. It's in the spirit of co-design. Now, with that, we have very limited funds to give out, which is unfortunate, and I hope that situation improves. But what we want to do is try and direct support where the benefit is most. And undoubtedly events, and I mean, I know many events that are largely created through voluntary work from people who on the ground who provide a huge amount of their time on a voluntary basis to promote their own areas. And I think wherever it's possible we need to support, not just with financial assistance, but as I say, there are supports available to ensure people get better skilled at running festivals and events. These are enormously beneficial, not just in terms of community cohesion, but also in attracting visitors and attracting people to particular local areas. And we will continue to give them all the support we can within the limits in terms of the budgets that we have available to us.
Call Paula Bradshaw.
Please.
Minister.
The Department recognises the importance of a thriving nighttime economy in ensuring our towns and cities are an attractive place to live, work, invest and visit. My Department is currently exploring how it can best support the nighttime economy. Engaging with the relevant stakeholders such as the newly appointed Night Czar, Michael Stewart, in Belfast will be an integral part of this process, and my Department has contacted Michael to arrange a meeting.
Thank you, Minister, for your answer. I'm pleased to hear that you're going to be meeting with Michael Stewart shortly. I think it was a wonderful appointment, and I think he's going to do a great job. As a representative of South Belfast, I really see such an overlap between a thriving nighttime economy and a really satisfied student population, and obviously they're both under your remit, and I would really encourage you to embrace this new appointment and see what you can do for the benefit of Belfast City and beyond. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I think the appointment of a person such as this is very useful because these aren't the single responsibility of any department, and someone who can draw that together I think would be very useful indeed. The student accommodation situation in Belfast is developing very rapidly, and you can see that right throughout the city centre, where that might herald a move for some of the more densely packed areas in South Belfast where students had congregated into kind of a different living environment in the city centre. It seems to be a very significant trend there. But of course we need to continue to work with the universities to make sure that where students are enjoying nightlife, that it isn't impacting on people, residents who live in the various parts of South Belfast, and that we have as safe as possible and conducive to enjoyment as possible atmosphere for nightlife. We have a very great offering in Belfast, as I'm sure you're aware, like myself, you read about it rather than experience it, but a very great offering of nightlife. Now, we want people to be able to enjoy that, but to do so in a very safe fashion, and that means ensuring that the universities play their role in assisting students to enjoy that in a safe way as well.
Call Deborah Erskine for supplementary.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Minister for his answers so far. Key to the nighttime economy is actually having proper infrastructure in place, such as taxis and public transport. I know that the Night Czar has raised the lack of taxi provision, and particularly around the town centre. These are workers, and they're concerned about the VAT consultation that's going at the minute in terms of Treasury's plans. So I'm wondering, there seems to be a nonchalant view of this from the Department. Is the Minister himself working with DFI in relation to these VAT plans, and is he working with the taxi industry, because we cannot afford to have less taxi drivers within the system?
Well, I agree with your the point that you've outlined in relation to safe night out environment means safe way of getting home. That's particularly the case for women getting home from nighttime night entertainment and our night economy. So that's critical importance. I'm very happy to, as I say, the appointment of a person to try and draw these strands together can be helpful because it cuts across many departments, and the taxi industry obviously is a responsibility of DFI, and I agree with you. We don't want to see less taxis, we want to see more taxis providing that support for people who are out enjoying our local economies in all our towns and cities. The VAT issue would be one for the Department of Finance. When I was Finance Minister, we did raise VAT issues on a number of occasions with Treasury, not with much success, mind you, but if there's a new government there might be a different approach in relation to that, and I'm sure the Finance Minister will raise those among a range of issues that the Executive want to raise with Treasury. But I'm very happy to offer support and collaboration with other ministers in ensuring that we have the best nighttime economy possible.
Matthew O'Toole for supplementary.
Principal Deputy Speaker, Minister, specifically in relation to Belfast, and I welcome Michael Stewart's appointment right in the middle of our key hospitality district, not just for Belfast but for the entire region. In the Cathedral Quarter there is a huge stretch of dereliction which has been facilitated by default or by design over the last couple of decades. I asked the First Minister in the previous session, will he work with others in the Executive to deal with that issue, to find a way of recovering that part of Belfast, known as the Tribeca Quarter, away from dereliction, should Belfast City Council not be able to progress that?
Minister.
Well, I noticed you commenting on that during the week. I was surprised you hadn't mentioned that you had the Infrastructure Minister in the last Executive that we had, when you were criticising people over the years for not taking any action. Of course, we want to see dereliction. Well, it's one thing to pass the buck on to everybody else, another thing to look in on yourself and the performance of your own party in the Executive on these matters. You've been in every Executive, apart from this one, I think, since the inception of the Good Friday Agreement. But yet you find the way to criticise every other party for their performance. And nonetheless, that aside, in going forward in a positive and constructive opposition perspective, I would certainly agree to work with other ministers. There are issues of dereliction across all of our towns, including Belfast. Some of those are in relation to things like cost of living, cost of doing businesses, where businesses are struggling. That means issues like rates, as well as other things. And the Department of Finance run a scheme whereby they're trying to encourage people back into unused premises. But that is in the context of a very limited budget, and 10% of the Executive's income come from rates. And so if we were to forgo more of that, then we forgo more money for other public services, which I'm sure he and others in the constructive opposition would criticise us for not spending money on. So it is a vicious sort of circle in relation to this, but we all have a responsibility to play our part, and I'm very glad to join my Executive colleagues, as I have been in all of the Executives I've sat in, including with some of your own colleagues.
Nicola Brogan for supplementary.
Will the Tourism Partnership Board include hospitality representatives, and will the Tourism Action Plan include actions that will help the hospitality sector?
Yes, it will. I think if we want to make sure that the tourism strategy which the department has produced has not currently concluded on is as effective as it can be, then that principle which I've always argued for of co-design in that needs people from that sector in there making their arguments, and that's the approach I've taken to various areas of responsibility across the department, to make sure that we have input from people in the various industries that we're trying to work with and provide policies for. That's the way we get the most effective policy. That's the way we get the most buy-in for that policy across the various sectors we're dealing with. So I had that opportunity, and I've had many opportunities since I came into office to talk to people from the tourism and hospitality sector. I did a tourism North-South Ministerial Council meeting this morning, and we were talking about the bigger issue of branding and other matters with the tourism department in the south. But yes, of course, they will be in it. We want to make sure that the tourism policy actually is as effective as it can be, and in doing that, we work as closely with the industry that will affect as much as we can.
I call Connie Egan.
Number 7, please.
Minister.
I intend to bring forward an employment rights bill within the current mandate to ensure that our employment law framework operates effectively for employees and businesses. I am aware that there have been calls for the leave to be a paid right, which go beyond the provisions of Britain and the South of Ireland and indeed the EU. The cost of providing paid carers leave would be considerable and would have to be fully funded by the Executive. In addition to the cost of providing paid carers leave, there are other possible implications, such as the availability of funding for any HMRC system changes that would be required. These changes would require considerable set-up costs, and the ongoing annual costs would be substantial. Carers leave is one of the issues within an employment rights bill that I intend to consult on, and any policy proposals for new legislation will be informed by the outcome of the consultation process. These in turn will also need the necessary approvals from the Executive and the Assembly.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister, for your answer. Carers play an invaluable role to our communities, but also our economy. Can I ask, have you engaged as Minister with any carers in regards to propositions for paid carers leave legislation?
Well, we have obviously been out consulting in relation to, the officials have been out consulting in relation to what's gone into the bill, and I agree with you in terms of the contribution that carers make. What I am outlining is that if it sometimes seems to be a ready response to say, well, they should be paid for all leave, that will arise a whole series of considerably bigger questions for us, and it's just to make sure that people are aware when we do go out to consultation that these are the issues that we face in terms of dealing with that, so that we go into this with eyes wide open. If we were to go down that road, and I'm not arguing against it or for it, I'm open in terms of the consultation, then that would be the consequences, and we need to make sure that we're ready for that, and the Assembly and the Executive would have to decide in relation to that. But I would encourage the member to respond to the consultation that's out, and I'm very happy, as I said, to hear from carers. I know officials have been working through all sectors that would be impacted on by the prospect of legislation.
Linda Dillon for a supplementary.
Thank you, Minister. Minister, can you outline what, if anything, your department is currently doing to support unpaid carers either back into the workplace or to remain in the workplace so that they can have the opportunity to continue with their own opportunities in life?
Minister.
The issue of carers leave and the barriers performing this important role may present for those with caring responsibilities, and women in particular, from entering or remaining within the workforce is a complex issue which stretches far beyond the policy remit of my own department. However, we have and we do play an important role. My department currently has several programmes available to all qualifying members of the public who wish to retrain. Each of these programmes and details on careers information may be found on NI Direct. The existing right to request flexible working also offers carers the opportunity to request working arrangements which allows them to balance their caring responsibilities with work. However, more can and should be done. I've been working with the Labour Relations Agency and other stakeholders to encourage employers to accommodate flexible working, and my proposed bill also presents a potential opportunity for strengthening this right.
Thank you, Minister. Claire Sugden is not in her place. I call Mr. Stephen Dunn.
Thank you. Deputy Speaker.
Minister.
Higher level apprenticeships are demand-led, with employers creating opportunities in line with business needs. HLA is our success story, growing significantly since it started in 2017, exceeding original forecasts. Year on year, we've seen an expansion in the range of HLAs being offered across our economy. This growth enables more employers to use apprenticeships to attract new talent, as well as providing existing employees a route to gain new skills where they are moving to a new job role. More recent statistics show that 65 higher-level apprentices had a home address in North Down. HLAs are delivered by all 6 further education colleges, CAFRE and the 3 local universities, offering access right across the north.
Stephen Dunn for a supplementary.
Thank you, and thank the Minister for his answer. Can the Minister outline if he has any plans to work with your executive colleagues to facilitate more apprenticeships within executive departments? For example, within the Department for Infrastructure, it is currently experiencing significant recruitment challenges, which is ultimately having an adverse impact on frontline services.
Minister.
Yeah, I think public sector apprenticeships are very important, and I will be encouraging all of the departments here to step up to the plate in that regard. I know it's a challenge in terms of managing all of that and managing budgets, but these are important routes for younger people and for people who are already in employment to either access that or to upskill while employment. So they are, as I said in my outline, my initial answer, proven to be more and more popular as the years go on. They have been a success story. I think we need to make sure that the public sector is pulling its weight in that regard, and that departments where they can get involved in this do, and where they can improve the numbers that they do so as well. And I'll be encouraging other ministers to do that.
Minister, what has been done within the Department of Economy in order to promote apprenticeships?
I forget the answer very quickly. The annual Northern Ireland Apprenticeship Week showcases how apprenticeships can transform the future of apprentices and businesses, helping them to release their potential. In addition, a twice-yearly apprenticeship advertising campaign reinforces the benefits of an apprentice to the individual and the employer.
So that ends the period for listed questions, and we're now going to move on to topical questions, and I call Sinead McLaughlin.
Minister, the budget allocated 4.1 million for the expansion of McGee. Can you tell us exactly, precisely, how many student places will be created this September as a result of this investment?
Minister.
Well, we have, as I said, that's part of an overall ambition to raise the university population of McGee to 10,000 students. That was a NDNA commitment. It falls to my department to try and deliver that, and we obviously are trying to incrementally increase the number that are there, in line with discussions with both the university itself and also the McGee Task Force. I can't give you an exact figure in relation to how many people will be enrolled in this September, because some of that will require people to be applying and coming into courses, but I am happy to get that answer and give it to you in due course.
Sinead McLaughlin for a supplementary.
Minister, I've been asking the answer to this question for some time now, because obviously preparations must be well underway. If potentially 500 new students could be coming in based on those figures there. So have you any idea, are these going to be additional places above Mazen, and are they going to be existing courses being expanded, or is it additional courses? It's really important so that we can plan for our economy going forward, and we just would like to know. I mean, we're going into July next week.
Minister, answer.
Okay.
It's not a statement, it's a question.
Minister. Well, firstly, we will consider Mazen in relation to McGee, and we have been doing that. Secondly, it will be for the university to decide the range of courses and the number of places that they've in. What we have to do is to provide the support and encouragement, and we have been doing that through the task force to make sure not only are the places available and the staff available to take additional students, but that the entire if you like, remit of the city and the Northwest region generally is brought together in one purpose to support that which is seen to be the central economic catalyst for growth in the Northwest. So the full weight of my endeavours as a minister is behind all of that, and we will try and ensure that the university and indeed the city deliver in that regard.
Dan Dodds.
Principal Deputy Speaker. Minister, I am aware that you met with my party colleague Gavin Robinson in relation to Spirit Air Systems. Perhaps you could inform the House what specific representation you have made to the company to try and keep the Belfast operation intact and save jobs.
Minister.
Well, you're correct. I met with the MP for the area, or the outgoing MP. I'm not sure what the status is just at this current time, but I did meet with him. We are concerned, and those concerns have been represented to us by people who work in the company in relation to the future of it and the potential of what may happen if the company is bought over and who is bought over by, and what it may do to the jobs that are currently available here. So I went and met down to Spirit and met with the company management. I also met with trade union people as well, and we discussed these issues out. We agreed that there would be a point in which some representations would be necessary. There are some reports this morning, I think, that we're moving close to that point, and I've undertaken to Gavin Robinson, when I spoke to him, and other members here have raised this issue at various times during question time as well. I've undertaken that we will play our full role, and InvestNI will play its full role in trying to support the outcome of keeping the jobs here, of keeping as much of the business here as can be possible, of using our influence with the British government to make sure when they're talking to some of the companies that may be involved, that they understand the importance of the jobs and the continuation of the development here. So we will absolutely be fully on board for doing all of that, and we have dialogue with them. We will have ongoing dialogue. We're keeping a very close watch and brief in relation to this, and we have committed to intervene if and when that necessary point arrives.
Diane Dodds for a supplementary.
Thank you, and thank you, Minister, for that. I think it is really, really important. There is a very large ecosystem of companies across Northern Ireland and in my constituency of Upper Bann that supply to the bigger companies like Spirit. Have you had contact with those companies, and do you recognise the importance that this very large employer has for their survival as well?
Minister.
Well, we do recognise that ecosystem, as you say, around it. Of course, we're trying to help all manufacturing businesses or supply chain businesses as well to keep them growing, keep them not only supplying local companies and companies that are working here, but increase their potential for exports elsewhere, which actually gives them more sustainability and more depth in terms of the business themselves. We haven't engaged them specifically on this because this is very much a decision in and around Spirit, Airbus and the other companies, Boeing and the other companies that might be interested in this. And what our primary objective in this is to protect the jobs there, protect the production there, and that in turn then gives a degree of certainty to the supply chain companies as well. And I'm hoping that we will be successful in that regard. But as I said in the initial answer, we're very committed to doing all that we can to make sure that we retain those jobs and all of that production here.
Peter McReynolds.
Can the Minister provide any update on the proposed closure of the Belfast Metropolitan College Castlereagh East campus?
Minister.
Well, that is a matter for Belfast Met. I say we're being kept abreast of decisions in and around the operations of campus are a matter for the college itself. They're not a matter, the department doesn't take those decisions. Those decisions are taken by the college management themselves. So it has been brought to my attention by a number of representatives, including when I had the dialogue with the MP for the area in relation to the Spirit. We also discussed that issue, and a number of other representatives here have raised that. But it is a matter for them. It is a matter that we are keeping an eye on. We want to make sure that our colleges grow, that they continue to have the capacity to offer as much places as they have to students, that we continue to grow the number of students in our further education colleges. So I don't want to see any action taken which jeopardises that ability to do that. But the kind of operational decisions in relation to how campuses are managed are a matter for the colleges themselves.
Peter McReynolds for supplementary.
I thank the Minister for his response. He'll be aware that the consultation closed in February and we're now in June. Can you assure me, Minister, that you and your departmental officials are doing everything that you can to ensure that this important educational facility remains open, but also that it is supported to deliver upon the aims of the 10X strategy? Summer is nearly here, and staff and teachers and pupils are students are contacting me about this as well.
Well, we recognise very clearly the importance. One of the biggest challenges we have in terms of growing the economy, which is an executive priority, is skills and availability of people to have the skills necessary to go into the workforce. And colleges are critical in relation to all of that. So I've had conversations with the college heads collectively on a number of occasions now, and we've been encouraged them to make sure that they collaborate together, that they operate to full capacity. We've been trying to provide as much support as is possible under the current budget rearrangements into the college sector, but they are the biggest sector that receives support from the Department of Economy, and we will continue to do that. I don't get involved in those individual decisions in relation to that, but in the overall terms, I want to see them ensure that they have the facilities, they have the staff, and they have the ability to provide as much places for students as possible, and we continue to grow numbers in the FE sector.
Kate Nicholl for a question.
Thank you, Principal Deputy Speaker. Can I ask the Minister for an update in the review of higher education funding, specifically in relation to student financing?
Minister.
Well, it's another matter which, in the overarching picture, is one of financial challenge. Had we more money available to us, we would certainly have more students, more support for more students. We have an ability to increase that kind of emergency support for students in year, which we had already done this year to add support. But in terms of the overall package, we're trying to work through the implications of the budget we have just received and to try and stretch that and allocate it as far as we can. The number of students going into courses, and that's the debate we'll come back to on the other side of questions, but the number of students going in and being able to go to colleges and other education and training facilities here is hugely important to growing our own local economy. So we are trying to provide support to students and provide support to the institutions to take more students, but that is a big challenge where you have a budget which is essentially the same as last year, which in effect means a reduction.
Kate Nicholl for supplementary.
Thank you, and I thank the Minister for his response and appreciate the constraints of the budget. Can I ask then, in terms of the work that's being done, if there is an intention to address the inequalities which exist for distance and part-time learners?
Well, we constantly talk to the universities and indeed to the colleges as well about ensuring the accessibility for everyone that needs to. We have a high level of economic inactivity, and some of that is people who haven't been in the education system or haven't gone through it fully or fallen out of it for one reason or another. A lot of it is about people trying to come back in to that system. So they have to have, just as people coming back into employment have to have the ability to access that on their terms that are suitable or appeal to them at that particular time in their lives. So we want to ensure that the colleges and the universities are making sure that courses they run are accessible to people. We have an objective to try and get more people from that economically inactive sector back into training, education and employment, and we are working obviously closely with the universities and the colleges to make sure that we're on the same script in that regard and make sure that accessibility is a key factor for them.
Collis Cummins.
Can I ask the Minister for an update on the flood payments, just which are affecting my own constituency in particular?
Minister.
The schemes, as the member will know, will be administered by the district councils. Enhanced flood scheme would provide support of up to £100,000 to businesses who are directly flooded, and the flood hardship payment of £5,000 to occupants who are not eligible for other supports. But the flood hardship payment of £2,500 to small and medium enterprises who were not directly flooded but were unable to access their premises and able to trade. The majority of the payments, around £200,000, have been issued of hardship payments, bar a few relating to incomplete information. To date, the councils have issued letters of offer to 39 enhanced scheme applicants. Approximately £2.2 million of funding has been provided to councils to enable these payments to be made. Councils have made payments of just under £1 million to businesses. The delay in making payments is due to information not being submitted by businesses, for example, proof of payment for works incurred. For those businesses who have not made payments for work incurred or work planned due to, for example, cash flow purposes, the Department has agreed that councils can make advance payments, and the councils are meeting with the loss adjusters on a weekly basis to ensure that no bottlenecks holding up any claims with them, and the council staff had made themselves available on the ground in both Newry and Downpatrick to assist businesses with submitting the required information to progress their claims.
Liz Cummins for supplementary.
Thank the Minister for his answer, and I want to particularly thank his officials for the work that they have done in helping us with businesses locally who have had unique circumstances. Can I ask the Minister then if there is any unspent money within the funds that were allocated to flood support? Will it be used for the original purpose of helping those businesses that have been affected by flooding?
Well, the primary objective is to try and make sure that businesses who need support get that level of support now, and if some of that is due to a lack of information we're provided, trying to work with them to make sure they can get that in and they can get the access to the schemes that we've already decided. If it turns out at the end that there's some of that £10 million unspent, then we will look at ways to try and use that to try and continue to support businesses in those areas affected.
Speaker, the Minister will be aware that hospitality businesses are under considerable strain at the minute due to a perfect storm of rates, energy prices and skills. Indeed, I can think of Clenahans and Ahilly in my own constituency, Lagan Valley, that had to close their doors, an otherwise viable business. What is the Minister doing to address this?
Well, we're supporting them in a range of ways. Obviously, we're trying to continue to provide support to Tourism NI for promoting more visitors coming to areas and therefore availing of hospitality. We recognise that skills and getting employees is one of the biggest challenges. There is a view of hospitality which I think is changing. We had a presentation this morning actually at the North-South Ministerial Council meeting in relation to the view that's changing, that where hospitality was seen as a job for part-time students but not a career, that is actually changing. There is a scheme to promote good employee conditions within hospitality to ensure that more people both join and more people stay in it and consider it to be a career. So we have to provide appropriate courses to work with hospitality to make sure the courses that are required to get people in there, to give them the right skills, are appropriate to the needs of the hospitality industry, and we're talking to them in relation to that, but also through the tourism agencies to promote the idea of working in hospitality as something which is a career choice rather than just something people go in for a part-time while they consider moving on to what they intend to be their career. The challenge, of course, is around issues like cost of living, cost of energy, cost of doing business are significant challenges for hospitality. We recognise that, and of course we will continue the argument for more financial support for the Executive, for the incoming government, to try and ensure that we have more money to spread around all businesses.
Saoirse, for supplementary.
I thank the Minister for his response, and in terms of the issue around rates, what representations has the Minister had with his colleague, the Finance Minister, in regard to this?
Minister, you have less than a minute.
Okay, well, I know the situation from my time in finance, and I can say, if I was standing with that hat on, I would say we did reduce business rates by 18% just coming into COVID. They were there and had that rates holiday for about 2.5 years. You have to remember that rates does contribute about 10% of the income that the Executive has. So if we forgo more rates, then that's the balance between allowing more businesses to have to pay less bills and having less money available for public services. So that is a delicate balance to strike, and I'm sure the Finance Minister will consider that among all of the options that she has.
Okay, thank you, Minister. In perfect time, so time's up. Would members just mind taking their ease? Do we change the top table?